Well, welcome everybody to this session. We're so happy to have you. I'm Lisa from Airship, and this is Rebecca from Notable Growth. We're really excited to talk to you today about re-engagement strategies. At Airship, I've been working on a product called Airship Journeys and talking with lots of marketing teams about how they use journeys as part of their strategy and lifecycle messaging. And we know that re-engagement is a really important component of that, so we wanted to target that today. So we're going to start talking about the risk of churn and what that means for your brand, and then road mapping your re-engagement strategy. And then we'll go through Airship Journeys and how that helps with this strategy, and then take your questions and have some discussion. So any questions you might have, please enter them into the chat and we'll go over them. So retaining your customers is so important as you've spent so much money to acquire them. So we have some really great stats to share with you from research. 78% of consumers said they would be more loyal to a brand that understood them and what they're looking for. So at the very start, making sure that it's clear what the brand value is to these customers onboarding with you. 30% of lapsed app users say they'd start using it again if they were offered a discount. So once they're out the door, it's going to be a little bit more expensive to bring them back. They want more encouragement. And 52% of consumers say they'd switch brands if they didn't feel they were receiving a personalized experience. So it's all about the value add to them personally. And if they start drifting, it takes a little bit more effort to bring them back. So I'm going to hand this over to Rebecca, who's going to take us through road mapping your re-engagement strategy.
Thank you, Lisa. So perfect handoff on bringing users back is really effective, but a little more difficult. So the best way of having some confidence in what will work moving forward is look at what's worked in the past. This is my chance to get to introduce myself, by the way, so you have any idea as to why to listen to me. So my name is Rebecca. I'm the founder of Notable Growth. We are an agency, and we sit between tools, teams, and tactics. And so I'm here to talk about how you can apply some of these tactics using a tool like Airship and their Journeys product. But in order to get the most out of any tool, you're going to need to have a good plan. So here's how to think about that journey. So you've come to a fork in the road. You've got users that are on the green happy path, but many more users than you probably want have fallen off and are on the red path. So how do we bring those users back, and what is the value in doing that? We've heard a lot about bending the curve, and it's something that applies to retention marketing as well. It can seem really overwhelming, but with just very simple changes that have a user coming back one more session, buying one more product, that can result in really meaningful impact to your revenue. So we're going to do that by looking back on the activities of your users who have done the thing you want them to do, and make all of our jobs a little bit easier. So when we're looking to bring back users, it's not just about bringing them back. We want them to do whatever our key activity is. So if we look at our historical data, find users that have taken that key activity, and also looked at the frequency with which they do that and the time in between those times that they do it, we learn a lot about where to know warning signs of people dropping off, as well as what people have interacted with or clicked on in the past that has resulted in them coming back for additional sessions. With that, we can break down the large problem of retention into something much more actionable. So in this case, we're looking at a funnel, and just got a great question of how far back do we look into historical data? So I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. One, I think you'll want to start as big as you can to start to see where those inflection points are. And so here's an important example. In this funnel, we see that the major drop-off is between the first and the second class. With that, we know that this is the big opportunity, and now we're really going to dive into that. The reason that it's important to look at this and that there's not one strategy that works across verticals is that your own product is going to have different usage windows. So by looking back, you're going to understand for about 60 to 80% of your users who return, what is the window in which they do that? And that gives you this metric of how far back or how long of a life cycle you want to look at. So in this case, we see the distance between the first and the second class. If you're a streaming product, you might look at how much time passes in between users streaming. Some clients that we work with have a much longer window, and so it's totally normal that 30 days can go by before users perform that key activity. Other products are the kind of thing that if somebody isn't coming back within another day or two, you've lost them. So that's why it's really important to understand your product's usage window. So in this case, now that we have a signal to zoom in on, we will do that by creating an engagement task force. And this has to extend beyond a marketer or a product person. If we start in this case with the marketer providing this data point about users or the audience saying that they like the atmosphere in coaches, somebody on the data team can then give you an insight of like, look, here's something that, in this case, it's 24 hours, right? That sends you a very important signal that you're going to want your journey for re-engagement to start looking 20 after they've taken a class. Whereas, as we just talked about with a different product, you might wait a couple of days. In this case, if you wait 3 days for the next message, you may have waited too long. Here's another example of the task force. Is that the marketer starts off with an insight about people saying that there's a real sense of community. Well, there's data that also supports that. They have purchase data from the cafes in the studio. Okay, now we want to do a campaign about relationship building. We have data that shows us that users who are referred by friends are 3 times more likely to book. And now that gives us an idea of a campaign that we would want to promote. So what originally looked like this red path with the right messages and this roadmap that's dictated by your historical data, that user can come back and can be just as productive as your users who found that value without needing to be nudged. So once you've got that roadmap pulled together, once you've got a plan, it really helps to have a tool that allows your team to perform beyond its size. And that's where a product like Journeys and Airship can help. So back to you, Lisa.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. And that was a really great question from the chat. So yeah, so you're thinking very holistically about the life cycle of your user coming through your brand and the different experiences and looking for those points of drop off. So with Airship, we're able to stitch together the life cycle together in a map. So this is actual UI in Airship where each of these boxes represents a journey. And as users flow out of a journey, if they've done a specific action, they'll move into the next journey. And if they haven't, they'll move into a continuation journey. And what we've been focused on is if people are dropping out, figure out why and make your best attempt to re-engage them. We make that really easy with these downstream connections involving your entire life cycle. And we have another great way of making it really easy to get started with our out-of-the-box re-engagement journey template. So this is an option, Airship. You simply click this button and it immediately populates a 2-part journey that has your audience automatically entering in and exiting based off of activity levels. And you get out-of-the-box reports based off reactivation rates. So you click that button, this 2-part journey pops up, and you're able to change all of the content, the look and feel. You can change your channel mix. You can change the time delays between, all sorts of delivery options. There's a lot you can do, but we have an out-of-the-box template with very simple recommendations. Just try 2 messages 7 days apart and adjust the message copy for your brand and get it out there. So I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like for one of our customers. This is an anonymized example just to give you a look and feel of taking this template and turning it into something that your brand can take action on immediately. So here is an anonymized budgeting app. And what we have is they've deployed this re-engagement journey after clicking that button, getting the template set up. They adjusted the copy to be about the brand, really simple messaging about brand value. And then 7 days later, a little bit more specific. So anybody who 7 days later has still not reactivated in the app and has exited out of this journey, they will receive this second message. So they've settled on a 7-day delay for now. And what we have is this really lovely ribbon of data across the top. So on the message 1, we see that some 578,000 users have flowed in to this first message and experienced it. We see a 2.74 engagement rate. And downstream of this first message, we have around 76,000 users have reactivated since receiving that first message before they could have received the second message. And because they've reactivated, they have exited out of this journey. So that logic is taken care of for you, we're taking care of that logic for you and presenting the outcomes very simply in this journey. And for this team, they're observing a significant level of reactivations after the first message. And this is just a starting point. They could take this journey in so many different directions. They could add new messages even further downstream. As you can see with the message 2, they still have almost 500,000 users are flowing into message 2, which means they have still not reactivated. So how can they keep driving reactivations with this journey? And the way that Airship journeys are built is you can deploy your first version, and as you see engagement rates, reactivation rates, or conversions, if it's an abandoned cart journey, you can keep tweaking and adjusting the journey over time to improve your outcomes. And so Airship journeys, it's a crawl, walk, run sort of scenario. We showed you a very simple way to get started, but there's a lot of power under the hood too. You can do cross-channel orchestration, retargeting, and as we said, you can start with a really simple, maybe it's just a 1 message journey for a particular purpose. And as you're seeing the flow of data, so this beautiful blue ribbon across the top, giving you an indication of performance, you can adjust your efforts at that time.
Yeah,
so oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the journey just lends itself to so many puns, but a journey really should begin with a single step. I think it's really difficult to optimize your journey if you come out of the gate with 5 messages, rather than 1 and then continue to add. Then it's much easier to figure out if you're, what's working, what's not, what you want to iterate before you add it as a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot of marketing teams get held up on perfection instead of just starting. So 1 message journey is a perfectly great place to just get started. Get something in front of your customers. So we have some, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I think the first question is a great one for you, Lisa, of just setting it up. How are you filtering who the journey is going to?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Ashley. So the out-of-the-box journey template is only going to go to users who have been inactive for 15 days. And that's an adjustable time. So it's triggering off of inactivity, and you can say how many days you want to wait, and the template just says 15. So you could adjust that, like you said, could be 30, 60, 90.
And I think for Joseph's question, it's a great combination of both of our takes on this. I really like to break down the re-engagement activity with these different key activities, because sometimes it's about bringing somebody back. Like, we've worked with clients that have a product that's really enticing to bring people back into a product, but it's not necessarily the one they wind up purchasing. So I think looking at those different things that just inch everybody along is a great way to create individual journeys based on a key action. Lisa, I think you can talk to stitching those together.
Yeah, it's when we were doing deep research before launching journeys a year ago, we heard that over and over again, that the reason people are building journeys is to motivate users through milestones. And legacy journey builder solutions force you to put it all in one graph. And then it's very hard to optimize those individual steps. Like Rebecca was saying, if you know there's a giant drop off between two important milestone steps, you need to be able to optimize that part specifically. And if it's all in one space, that's extremely hard to do. So yeah, we not only encourage it, we've built it into the UI to make it very simple to stitch your individual funnel steps together and be able to optimize them separately.
Lisa, there's some questions about channel, which is one thing that we didn't cover. And then there's also a question about A/B testing. So maybe you can speak to both of those.
Well, this is great. I think I'll just start with the A/B testing one. So just to preview, and you guys are all in here and we're all good friends, we are having an announcement next week launching our experimentation platform in Journeys, and that will include A/B testing. So that launch is happening next week, really excited about it, and some of our customers have already been experiencing those benefits.
And then what are the various channels that are included in Journeys?
Yeah, maybe I'll switch to this preview. So this is a nice mock-up we've made of Journeys that shows all the things you can do. And customers who are building Journeys, they look very similar to this. It's the same look and feel, but this showcases everything. So you can use email, SMS, web, mobile push, mobile in-app, mobile message center. And also we have a concept of open channel, which we've had customers use this open channel concept to send newsletters, like paper newsletters to their end users. So we have all of the channels under the sun possible to use in Journeys, and out of the box we've got email, SMS, web, mobile.
I love talking about the channels for re-engagement as well, because it whenever we're talking about series, it's common to talk about onboarding, but it's totally different because in that case, they've just installed your app, or they're as active with your product as many people ever will be. In this case, you're trying to win them back. Now, the in-app message would be helpful in the case that somebody is still logging sessions with your app, but they just haven't purchased. And that's a case where we've seen in the past, when we look at where that road forks, let's say it's a QSR client and like a quick serve fast food. What might be the difference? Well, what if some people are looking at offers and that's having a strong correlation with them making a purchase, a second purchase, but those that have not looked at those offers show that they're less likely. We could use an in-app to point out that offers exist in the app. But what might often be the case with re-engagement is that they're not even in the app or in the product. So you have to rely more heavily on email and push. So it's really important that you're optimizing towards not just the right message, but also what is the best channel. And again, especially with re-engagement, it's so important that you're looking back on the time and the channel that's working for your active users, because you might not get many more chances to bring these users back. That being said, if they're not engaging, you might lose them anyway. So it's not such a terrible time to at them, because the absence of messaging might wind up being worse than having somebody unsubscribe.
Yeah, definitely. That it's the analytics part of it is so important, but it shouldn't prevent you from getting started, right? Because you could do such a deep dive and then never get started. I've definitely had marketing teams I've talked to who've been telling me for a whole year that they've meant to revamp their welcome series. And it's a year later, and I think that the perfect is the enemy of the good for them. I wanted to address this question from Joseph. Do you reach volumes that get reported back include only those that still have the app with push notifications turned on, or is it anyone ever installed? So I think there's two parts of that. If you have a journey that's launched, anybody who's flowed through the journey will be included in this ribbon of counts. So that is anybody who at the time could have qualified for the journey. But then as your question is, what about your analytics about anybody who's ever installed and uninstalled and opted out? We have a really great platform called Performance Analytics. So like your Tableau that you might have in-house, that you can take Airship data, like about installs and opt-outs and timing, installs, uninstalls, timing, opt-outs, and do a deep analysis there. So journey-specific data is all about who's flowed in and who's flowed out. And then you have our entire platform data that you can engage with performance analytics.
And I like Joseph's question about sunsetting. So it's a matter of, number one, messaging, email in particular, has a cost in the sense that you probably have a package of emails, and it also takes people time and effort to put campaigns together, right? So you certainly want to be considering that. Of course, the smaller your send, even if the open rate and the performance rate increases, you want to make sure that you're keeping in check when the conversion is going down. Unless your metric is all about increasing open rates, you want to be balancing those two. That being said, why not have some holdout groups? And also the urgency behind those kinds of campaigns where you say to somebody, hey, we're getting the sense that you're not interacting with us as much, so we're about to either opt you out or kind of decrease the frequency with which we message you, is a really effective tactic at bringing somebody back. It also reflects well on your brand. So you'll want to optimize against those two, but it really can be skewing your data if you're including too many people. And there's a lot of ways to cut out a whole group of your audience and not have a very sizable impact on the conversion. And then the times that you do message those users, you'll be monitoring this, but it's much more likely that they'll interact with you. So you can start with the majority of your users to just implement what you see to be that drop off, but then you should have a parallel path where you're testing a more nuanced engagement feature of, are people opening emails, clicking, and how do I figure out when the right time is to decrease the frequency?
Yeah. We have a question here. Does this platform also help with SMS email opt-in, or is it prerequisite, or is it a pre-requirement to use Journeys? So Journeys has a very flexible cross-channel concept to it. So with people can enter into your journey who are just app users, and you are intending to capture more channels into their profile so that you can message them on other channels. Well, you can use Journeys to target people who are on your app and send them links and information to acquire them on email or SMS. So there is the platform itself, like this is where the crawl, walk, run comes in. To crawl, you're really just targeting people on the same channel that they're already engaging with. Walk is, I want to make sure that if I already know I have different access points to them. I'm going to try to touch them on different access points. And then the run is I want to acquire on different channels with the channels I already have. And there's great ways that you can do that with Airship. This session, it goes till 15 after the hour. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got just one more minute at the inbox. So we have Message Center is a great channel that we support at Airship. You can use this in Airship Journeys. And we've seen a really lovely amount of cross-channel within mobile app. So we have these Reengagement Journeys welcome series and all sorts of bespoke journeys for our customers. And they'll ping their customers across these series of messages and with in-app messaging, with push, with Message Center, and also having the strategy laid out to fall back if somebody doesn't have push enabled. They shouldn't miss the message. If they don't have push enabled, you should be able to fall back to Message Center or in-app. All right, well, we're coming up on time. Thank you, Rebecca, for being part of this session. This has been really fun working with you, and really encourage everybody who's joined to check out Airship, check out Notable Growth, and have a great day with the rest of Mobile on Air.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, bye.